My name is Jay Newton-Small, and I am CEO and founder of MemoryWell. We're a network of almost 400 journalists across the country writing the life stories of those living with Alzheimer's and dementia in the aim of improving their care. So MemoryWell grew out of my experience with my father. My dad had Alzheimer's, and I was his primary caregiver, and a few years ago I had to move him into a community. And when I did, they asked me to fill out this 20-page questionnaire about his life. And I was sitting there writing all these answers thinking, A, first of all, you're never going to be able to read my handwriting. And secondly, who reads 20 pages of handwritten data points for the 150 residents there? So I turned in the form blank and I said, look, I'm a journalist, why don't you let me tell his story? And that's what I did. And they absolutely loved it. It transformed his care. 2 of his caregivers were Ethiopian, and they'd had no idea that my dad had lived in Ethiopia for 4 years early on in his career with the United Nations. And they became his champions. They would sit for hours showing him photos of Addis Ababa and Lalibela. So MemoryWell became sort of a project for me after that, where I would recruit my writer friends to tell my dad's friends' stories, and we realized the impact that an amazing story, simply told, could have in a person's life. And it was so powerful for me that last November I quit my job at Time magazine and I went full-time at MemoryWell because I believe that these stories will have a much larger impact than the stories that I wrote for Time. So all of our stories are analog, and that's because a lot of the homes that we work in actually don't even have Wi-Fi. You can print them out, you can put them in care plans, you can laminate them, put them up on walls so that anybody coming in can read about those people and build community. We also have a digital solution where all of our stories are hosted on a website, and then family members can upload their loved ones' favorite music and arts and videos and readings. And that way, whomever's sitting with them, whether they're a grandchild or a paid caregiver, will have a whole toolbox of things with which to engage with them with. In the year that we've been doing MemoryWell full-time, we have made a lot of progress. We're in almost a dozen homes, and we're in talks to pilot with 5 large national chains of assisted living facilities, which is really exciting. But there's not just, don't just take my word for it in terms of anecdotally, there's a lot of research that shows that life storytelling can have an enormous impact on those living with Alzheimer's and dementia. Not only can it build empathy between caregivers and family members, but it also can reduce depression and even increase dexterity. And that's why we're here today at Solve. What we really want from you guys is to help us with some research. So we believe that if you can tell life stories, that it actually can reduce the amount of prescription drugs used for treating those with Alzheimer's and dementia. And in that case, we can get CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, to help pay for us. Because we have to pay our journalists, and journalism can get expensive. All of our stories cost between $400 and $450. And this way, if we get CMS to help pay for us, millions of stories can be told. And that way, millions of stories can be saved that otherwise wouldn't be told. We're MemoryWell, and we're putting the person, like my dad, into person-centered care.